November 6, 2019. Joe here at Simple Life Show. I appreciate everybody for joining me today. Don't forget to like and follow and share and do all that good social media stuff because that is what really matters. So if you haven't been living under a rock for the last 10 to 20 years, you will be well aware how important or how popular, I guess, and important the legalization of marijuana is. Ever since Nixon took office and did a whole bunch of stuff that ruined this country, including doing the Controlled Substance Act, along with messing with the gold standard and all other kind of wonderful things that happened back in the 70s that completely ruined this country on a cellular level. We have come full circle. Of course, it's taken a long time to get there. So Trump is kind of misconstrued as anti-marijuana, and I don't believe he is. I don't think that he has ever given anything to suggest that he is anti-pot, marijuana, cannabis, however you want to say it. What Trump is, however, he's not a panderer. He is not a lover of complete government control over things, and I think we've seen that through his legislation and stuff that he's actually being pushed forward. I have talked to so many people, liberals, leftists, whatever you want to call it, that hate Trump, right? And they want to say Obama was the best president. And obviously, that's all subjective. But when we talk about the issue of marijuana, Obama really didn't do anything. Obama really didn't pass anything. Now, there was a spending bill that went through while he was president towards the end of his term. I think that was either 2015 or 16 or something like that, possibly, where it limited the amount of federal spending that went towards to the enforcement of federal marijuana laws. That wasn't really a huge step forward, but it was something. I'll give him that. But that was the only real thing that Obama did. He was actually really vocal about how much he didn't care about the subject. And I think that a lot of liberals out there really need to take note that the Democrats out there are really pandering to you. They don't really care about how much pain you're in. They don't really care about what marijuana does for you. And I don't even like calling it marijuana. It's cannabis, people. Marijuana is a racial slur, and it's a type of thing to I don't know. It's just not a really good word to be using anymore. We need to really be calling the plant by its scientific name, which is cannabis sativa or indica or ruderalis, however you want to interpret that. Now, Trump has done a lot of stuff for this movement going forward. I know that a lot of people out there would just like that, for the president to institute an executive order to get rid of all this stuff. Now, a lot of Bernie bros out there and Elizabeth Warren fans and even Biden fans, Biden has actually really come out and said that he wants to keep it illegal, make it a misdemeanor or whatever. I think that is the lamest position to have. It's not very popular. If he really wants to get a lot of the marijuana vote out there, then he really needs to kind of step back and review his own thoughts about this topic, because it is a very important topic. Politicians really need to pay attention to what's happening in the cannabis industry, because it is growing at an accelerated velocity. And without the partnership of the government and the state government, a lot of this can actually get out of control, especially when it comes to a lot of these producers that aren't abiding with one law or that law, and it becomes very, very, very weird, and it can cause a lot of problems, especially when Colorado and a lot of the other states made cannabis legal recreationally, as well as obviously for medical purposes. I think it's all medical purposes, but that's beside the point. The banking industry, a lot of when cannabis first started out, or the legalization of cannabis in a lot of these states, they didn't have access to a lot of the banks. Of course, this is changing now, but it's not changing as quick as it should. I think that politicians really, especially on the Democratic side, they really need to take note of this. Just simply saying that, we need to legalize it is not really an answer, because that's not really addressing a lot of the main issues that the current states have right now with their own legalization process. They see the federal Substance Control Act as still a real thing that still can be enforced, which it still can, because the bill that was passed in the Obama administration wasn't something that prohibited the federal agents from enforcing the law. It just restricted the amount of money that went towards it. So if you see, there's a huge difference there. So they can't really take as much money to enforce that law, but they can still do it. So what has Trump really done? There's a lot of misconceptions about Trump and marijuana. I believe that first and foremost, Trump wants to keep everything at the state level. Number one, that might be a little bit confusing for some. And when I first started thinking about it a long time ago about state rights and stuff like that and self-government, it was like, well, why can't the federal government do it? Well, there's a lot of reasons why the federal government doesn't want to get involved in it. Yes, there is a Federal Controlled Substance Act, and that is causing a lot of problems. But simply doing an executive order to get rid of it will not do anything. Of course, you have to either get the Attorney General or the Health and Human Services involved. That's one way to do it. Going through Congress is another way to do it. But simply writing out a bill and signing it is not going to do anything. That's not how any of that works. The DEA probably has to be involved too. And you have to understand that there's a lot of, legalizing it completely federally or taking it off the controlled substance list. The states are still, that doesn't mean that the states are going to be forced to open up marijuana dispensaries. Okay, it's still going to be a state issue at the end of the day. Okay, and if you don't believe me, go to some states that have a lot of dry counties where you cannot buy alcohol in those counties because it is illegal. It is illegal to possess, and have alcohol, buy alcohol, and stuff like that. Maybe you can have alcohol. I don't know. It really just depends on that particular, counties or, I don't think there's one state that has all of alcohol illegal, but it is up to local municipalities, local government to make those decisions on alcohol. Just because there was a amendment to the Constitution that legalized, it struck down prohibition instead of just legalizing it. It just struck down prohibition. It does not mean that the states have to follow that. The states can self-govern themselves. They can self-govern, and they can do whatever they want to do. They can make whatever they want illegal. That is part of the Constitution. That's part of the self-governance of the states, and that's why Trump has that position, because he respects the Constitution. Of course, the problem is, the Controlled Substance Act. So there's a state's bill that was introduced, and I think a lot of things are going to be happening here over the next few months going into 2020. And so there was a lot of legislation that was passed by Trump. He passed the Farm Bill here recently, and at the end of 2018. So that was about 10 months ago that went through, and that in effect legalized low THC cannabis. And it's primarily hemp, but if you look online, there's a lot of hemp stores opening right now, and a lot of it looks really, really good. And I think it's going to be really, really great for the people that need the CBD and they need the CBGs and a lot of the cannabinoids that work with your endocannabinoid system. I think that's a really good thing. Obviously, this is a move in the right direction. And the reason why I'm making this video is because there is a lot of misconceptions about Trump. Oh, Trump's a really bad guy. He doesn't care about people, and he's the worst person for the job, or whatever. He's a racist. He's a misogynist, or whatever. I think that Trump has done a lot for the marijuana movement, just in particular, just letting a lot of people out of prison for low-level drug offenses, which includes marijuana, selling marijuana. So he did that as well. There was a lot of different things. We have the marijuana farm bill. We have the right to try bill, where those who have certain illnesses and stuff, they can try whatever medicine they want. It's up to them. The government won't step in and say, no, you can't. You can do it. They can do whatever they want. And I think that's a huge step. And especially this farm bill is a huge step towards the eventual complete legalization. And I think that the state's bill, or a bill that basically nullifies the marijuana's inclusion in the drug, the Controlled Substance Act, is really what is needed, because at the end of the day, it's always a state's issue. A lot of these states have been reluctant to pass a lot of these marijuana bills because they are afraid of interfering with federal law, which is completely understandable. So a state bill would actually nullify all that stuff and in effect legalize marijuana. Of course, it would be up to the states. But I guarantee you, once that happens, all the rest of the dominoes will fall. All states will fall in line. There won't be anything left in their way towards legalization of marijuana. So this is something that Trump is doing, that he supports, and I think that a lot of people really need to understand that this is all part of the Constitution. He's trying to follow the Constitution as quick, as closely as possible, and I think this is a good thing. And when Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all these other Democrats say they're just gonna write out an executive order to legalize it, they are lying to you. It's not going to happen that way. Imagine all of the lobbyists that are going to go to a lot of these Congress people when they actually are going to be voting on this. For a lot of the pharmaceuticals, they don't like legalized marijuana. For a lot of law enforcement agencies, they don't like that. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a state issue. And I believe there's going to be such an enormous pressure for a lot of these states to go ahead and legalize marijuana, at least in some form. And we see that happening on a consistent basis. We see a lot of the dominoes falling. And of course, the main cannabis, excuse me, I keep saying marijuana, but the main cannabis advocates out there, including NORML, are actually on board with this states' right issue and the state's bill. They feel like it's going to be the best way forward. So with that in mind, be sure you're voting for the right person, okay? Now, if you're in the marijuana industry or cannabis industry, and I'm just going to keep saying it, I guess I'm just kind of spaced out right now. But if you are in that industry yourself, you would really want Trump at the helm for the next 4 years, 5 years, I guess. Because if you have someone at the helm that is really advocating for a complete government control of everything, you don't want to be in that industry, because if the government tries to take control of a lot of these industries, then that's going to put a lot of people out of business, and we're going to be stuck with a lot of government-run healthcare and government-run marijuana businesses. We don't want that. Absolutely not. I mean, just do your research, people. If you're a liberal out there and you're listening to this, please, look at what's actually going to be the best for the cannabis industry. And I believe Trump is behind that, and I believe that going into 2020, we will see some even more significant legislations when it comes to the legalization of cannabis. And I think he's just going to drop the hammer on a lot of these Democrats, and I think that's really what's going to happen. He's going to take away one of their main arrows from the quiver, and he's going to keep it for himself, and then he's going to get reelected anyway. But until next time, this is Joe with Simple Life, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.